A struggling father, desperate to save his sick little girl, takes off the last piece of his late wife, the wedding ring, and lays it on a pawnshop counter. But what seems like a simple act of sacrifice explodes into something no one could have imagined. The pawnshop owner is not who he appears to be. Behind his dusty counters and calloused hands, he hides a fortune and a secret that could shatter lives. As whispers spread, judgments grow cruel, and one desperate complaint threatens to tear a daughter away from her only parent. The truth edges closer to the light. But when the past collides with the present, mercy and scandal intertwine. Will this hidden millionaire's secret destroy the very family he's trying to save, or become the miracle that changes everything? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The frost painted delicate patterns across the kitchen window as Caleb Hart stirred oatmeal on the stove. Outside, Maple Ridge slept under a blanket of November cold, the old steel town's rooftops glittering white in the early morning light. He kept the heat low to save money, wearing his army sweatshirt with the frayed cuffs while he cooked. Morning sunshine. He turned as Lily shuffled into the kitchen, her fuzzy purple slippers making soft sounds on the linoleum. Even at 8 years old, she moved with the careful grace of someone who'd learned not to waste energy. "Morning, Daddy." Her voice carried a slight rasp that hadn't been there last week. She climbed onto her chair, pulling her robe tighter around her small frame. The cough came as she reached for her spoonlight, but persistent enough to make Caleb's chest tighten. He set the bowl of oatmeal in front of her, steam curling up between them, and retrieved the orange pill bottle from the counter. His thumb traced the label as he shook it. The rattle told him what he already knew. 3 pills, maybe 4. Brown sugar or honey today? Honey, please. Lily drew a smiley face in her oatmeal with the spoon while he drizzled golden honey across the surface. "Mrs. Chen says we're doing watercolors in art class today." "That's great, sweetheart." He watched her take small, deliberate bites. The morning light caught the wisps of hair that had escaped her braid, turning them gold like her mother's used to be. After walking Lily to school, her hand warm in his despite the cold, Caleb headed to Starlight Pharmacy on Main Street. The bell above the door chimed as he entered, and Mrs. Patterson looked up from behind the counter with a practiced smile that faltered when she saw his face. "Mr. Hart, here for Lily's prescription?" "Yes, ma'am." He pulled out his wallet, already knowing it held $43 and change. His paycheck from the construction site wouldn't come until Friday. Mrs. Patterson's fingers clicked across the keyboard. The printer hummed to life, spitting out paperwork that seemed longer than usual. She cleared her throat. There's been a change in the pricing structure. Her eyes wouldn't quite meet his. The supplier adjusted their rates. The insurance only covers 60% now instead of 80%. How much? $320 for a month's supply. The number hung in the air between them. Caleb's hand stilled on his wallet. Last month, it had been $160. The month before, $140. Is there a generic version? Not for this particular medication. I'm sorry, Mrs. Patterson's voice dropped. I could give you a week's worth. That would be $80. $80 meant no electric bill. No electric meant no heat. But no medicine meant watching Lily struggle to breathe, meant emergency room visits they definitely couldn't afford. I'll come back tomorrow." Outside, the cold air bit at his face. He walked past Grace Fellowship Church, its white steeple reaching toward the gray sky, past the boarded-up windows of what used to be Donovan's Hardware. His hand found his phone in his pocket. He could call Mr. Brennan, the landlord, ask for an extension on rent, but he'd already done that last month when the car needed new brakes. Pride tasted bitter in his throat. That evening, Caleb helped Lily with her homework at the kitchen table. She'd painted a watercolor of their duplex, complete with the crooked mailbox and the oak tree in the front yard. "It's beautiful," Lily pad. "I made the windows yellow because home should look warm." She yawned, leaning against his shoulder. "Even when it's cold outside." After tucking her in, reading 2 chapters of Charlotte's Web and checking her breathing twice, Caleb sat alone at the kitchen table. The house settled around him with familiar creaks. From the drawer beside the sink, he pulled out the stack of bills: electric, gas, rent. Each envelope might as well have been stamped with "past due" in red letters. His wedding ring caught the overhead light as he spread the bills across the table. White gold, simple, with tiny scratches from 16 years of wear. He twisted it off his finger, something he hadn't done since the funeral. The inside of the band held the inscription in Mara's neat script, "All my tomorrows. M." She'd had it engraved the night before their wedding, a surprise revealed only when they exchanged rings at the altar. "Because that's what I'm giving you," she'd whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Every tomorrow I have." She got 12 years of tomorrows. Not nearly enough. Caleb held the ring up to the light. Pawn shops opened at 9. Maple Ridge Pawn, APA, loan on 2nd Street, had a decent reputation. The owner, some guy named Raphael, supposedly gave fair prices. The ring was worth maybe $400. $5 if he was lucky, enough for medicine and part of the rent. Enough to buy another month to figure things out. He slipped the ring into his pocket, where it settled against the lint and loose change. His finger felt naked, exposed. Wrong. From down the hall came a soft cough. Then another. Caleb pressed his palms against his eyes until he saw stars. The frost crunched beneath Caleb's boots as he walked down Main Street. 9:15. Lily was safe at school, her lunch packed with a peanut butter sandwich and the last apple from the bowl. His left hand stayed buried in his coat pocket, thumb rubbing the bare skin where the ring should be. Maple Ridge Pawn, HOLP. Lone sat between the old barber shop and a vacant storefront that used to sell flowers. The painted sign above the door had faded to soft blues and golds. A bell jangled as Caleb pushed inside. The shop smelled of lemon oil and old leather. Guitars hung from the walls like sleeping birds. Shelves held power tools, their cords wrapped neat as presents. A glass case displayed watches that had stopped telling time for other people, waiting to start again for someone new. Behind the counter stood a man in his late 50s, sorting through a box of doorknobs. His hands were calloused, working hands, and his flannel shirt had been washed to softness. He looked up with dark eyes that held no judgment. "Morning. Morning." Caleb's voice came out rougher than intended. "I'm Raphael. Rafe." He set down a brass doorknob. "What can I do for you?" The ring sat heavy in Caleb's pocket. He pulled it out, the metal warm from his grip, and set it on the glass counter. The tiny click echoed. Rafe picked up the ring with the same care someone might lift a baby bird. He pulled out a jeweler's loupe, examined the band, the setting. Then he tilted it toward the light, and Caleb knew he was reading the inscription. "All my tomorrows, M." Rafe's voice stayed soft. He set down the loupe. "How long?" 3 years. Caleb cleared his throat. "Cancer." Rafe nodded, still holding the ring like something precious. "You sure about this?" "My daughter needs medicine." Something shifted in Rafe's face. He walked to a filing cabinet, pulled out a worn ledger, and made some notes. Then he opened the register. Collector's piece, this. The inscription adds significant value. Vintage band, excellent condition. He met Caleb's eyes. $800. Caleb's breath caught. That's too much. It's what it's worth." Rafe counted out bills, mostly 20s and 50s, the kind that wouldn't draw attention. "You want to buy it back? You come see me. Same price, no interest, no questions." The money felt foreign in Caleb's hands, wrong and necessary all at once. "Thank you." Rafe wrote out a receipt, his handwriting careful and clear. At the bottom he added, "Buyback option available indefinitely. You need anything else, you come back." Rafe's eyes held something Caleb couldn't name. Sometimes folks need more than money. Outside, the November air hit Caleb's lungs sharp and clean. He walked straight to the pharmacy, paid for 2 months of Lily's medicine, and still had enough left for the electric bill. Mrs. Patterson's eyebrows rose at the cash, but she said nothing. In the shop, Rafe waited until he saw Caleb turn the corner. Then he picked up the phone and dialed a number he knew well. Starlight Pediatric Clinic, how may I help you? This is Rafael Moreno. I'd like to make a donation to a patient account. Anonymous. Of course, Mr. Moreno. Patient name? Lily Hart. After providing the details and his credit card information for 6 months of medication coverage, Rafe hung up. He opened the safe behind a faded poster of the 1979 Maple Ridge Fair and placed Caleb's ring inside a small velvet box. Not for sale. Never for sale. That evening, Caleb stopped by the clinic pharmacy on his way to pick up Lily from after-school art club. The same clerk from the morning looked confused. Mr. Hart? There's a note here about your account. His stomach dropped. What kind of note? Someone's covered Lily's medication for the next 6 months. Paid in full this afternoon. Who? It says, Anonymous. She printed out a receipt showing a zero balance. Happens sometimes. Good people in this town. Caleb stared at the paper, $800 in his pocket, 6 months of medicine paid for. The electrical bill could wait another day while he figured out who to thank. Or who to pay back. Lily bounced into the car holding a new painting, her cheeks pink from the warm art room. Look, Daddy. I painted the pawn shop from when we walked past it last week. The watercolor showed the storefront in cheerful blues and yellows. Above it, she'd painted a sun with rays that reached down like gentle hands. It's beautiful. Lily pad. Miss Jennifer says art is how we say thank you for things we can't explain. She coughed once, then smiled. I'm going to make postcards for Christmas presents. This one's for the nice man who owns the shop. How do you know he's nice? His windows are clean. Grandma always said, people who take care of small things take care of big things too. At home, Caleb gave Lily her medicine with a full glass of water and promised her the coughing would ease soon. She tucked the pawn shop painting into her backpack, handling it like treasure. For later, she said mysteriously. That night, after Lily fell asleep breathing steady and sure, Caleb sat at the kitchen table. His fingers still felt naked, but Lily's medicine bottle sat full on the counter, and somehow the lights stayed on. 2 nights later, the basement of Grace Fellowship Church hummed with warmth and the scent of green bean casserole. Wednesday hymn sing and potluck had drawn its usual crowd, mostly folks with gray hair and stories to spare, plus a scattering of young families who knew a free meal and genuine kindness when they found it. Caleb held Lily's hand as they descended the stairs, her other arm clutching her backpack like it held state secrets. The medicine was working. Her breathing came easier now, though the November cold still pinked her cheeks. There's my warriors. Pastor Evelyn May swept toward them, her silver hair catching the fluorescent lights. She wore her Wednesday uniform sensible slacks and a sweater with a cross pin that had belonged to her mother. Lily, you're looking stronger. I painted something, Lily whispered, then pressed her face into Caleb's hip. She's been mysterious about it all day, Caleb said. Pastor Evelyn's eyes crinkled. Mystery and wonder, that's what we need more of. Come on, I saved you seats near the piano. Mrs. Chen brought her famous dumplings. They settled at a long table covered in mismatched vinyl cloths. Lily kept her backpack on her lap, scanning the room like a tiny detective. When Caleb went to fill their plates, she tugged Pastor Evelyn's sleeve. Is the pawn shop man coming, Mr. Moreno? He might, I asked him. Pastor Evelyn studied the child's eager face. Why do you ask, sweetheart? I made him something. 20 minutes into the meal, as Mr. Patterson launched into his third retelling of the 1978 blizzard, the basement door opened. Rafe Moreno stood at the top of the stairs, work boots and flannel shirt same as always, looking like he might bolt. Pastor Evelyn rose smoothly. Rafe, so glad you made it. We've got plenty. Mrs. Chen outdid herself. He descended slowly, nodding at familiar faces. Some nodded back, others whispered behind their hands. The pawn shop owner wasn't a regular at church events. Lily vibrated in her chair. When Rafe took a seat 3 tables over, she unzipped her backpack with the ceremony of a soldier preparing for mission. "Now?" she asked Caleb. "If you want to," Lily pad. She walked across the room, watercolor postcard held in both hands. The basement quieted, everyone pretending not to watch. She stopped in front of Rafe, who set down his fork. "This is for you," she said, voice clear as a bell. "It's your store, but I made it shine." Rafe took the painting with careful hands. The pawn shop glowed on the paper, transformed by a child's optimism into something magical. The sun above it seemed alive, spreading golden warmth across the little storefront. His throat worked. "This is," he stopped, tried again. "This is the most beautiful thing anyone's given me in a long time." "Really? Really?" His eyes glistened. "You're quite an artist, Miss Lily." "Daddy says art is how we say things our words can't." She leaned closer, conspiratorial. "Your shop helps people. That's why I made it shine." Caleb appeared beside his daughter, hand gentle on her shoulder. "Lily, let Mr. Moreno eat his dinner." "It's fine." Rafe stood, offering his hand. "Caleb." They shook, the handshake firm but weighted with unspoken things. "Thank you for your fairness the other day," Caleb said, voice low. "The valuation. I'll buy it back soon as I can manage." "No rush." "There is, though." Caleb's jaw tightened. "It's important I do this right." Rafe studied him, then nodded. "I understand." Pastor Evelyn's voice rose from the piano. "All right, everyone. Time to make a joyful noise. Hymn books are on your tables, but let's start with one we all know by heart." The opening notes of Amazing Grace filled the basement. Voices joined in, some strong, some trembling with age. Lily climbed onto Caleb's lap, her thin arms wrapped around his neck as she hummed along. During "How Great Thou Art, Old Mrs." Kowalski harmonized in her wavering soprano. By blessed assurance, even the teenagers in the corner had put down their phones to sing. Rafe sang quietly, his baritone barely audible, but Caleb noticed him touch the postcard painting twice, like he was making sure it was real. The evening wound down with coffee and pie. Lily dozed against Caleb's shoulder, worn out from socializing. As folks bundled into coats, Rafe approached. "She's special, your girl. She gets that from her mother. The kindness is yours, too." Rafe pulled on his jacket. "The painting, I'll frame it. Put it in the shop window if that's all right." She'd love that. They walked out together, the November night crisp and clear. Stars scattered across the sky like scattered diamonds on velvet. Rafe headed toward his truck, then turned back. "The ring's safe. Want you to know that." Caleb nodded, not trusting his voice. At home, Caleb tucked Lily into bed, her breathing steady and deep. He knelt beside her, the hardwood cold on his knees. "Thank you," he whispered into the darkness. "For the medicine, for the church, for Rafe's kindness. For whatever angel arranged that clinic payment." His voice cracked. "Help me do better. Help me be enough." Lily stirred, mumbled something about sunshine, then settled back into dreams. The waiting room at Starlight Clinic smelled like disinfectant and the faint sweetness of someone's forgotten coffee. Caleb filled out the same forms he'd completed a dozen times before, while Lily swung her legs from the plastic chair, humming yesterday's hymns. "Heart? Lily Hart?" Nurse Dalrymple stood in the doorway, 70-something years wrapped in scrubs covered with dancing cats, her silver hair pinned back in the same style she'd worn for decades. "My favorite artist." She beamed at Lily. "Come on back, sweetheart. Dad, you too." The examination room walls displayed the usual height charts and vaccination schedules, but Nurse Dalrymple had added her own touches, photos of grandchildren, a cross-stitch that read, "Love Never Fails," and a jar labeled, "Magic Peppermints." "Up on the table, little one." She patted the paper-covered surface. "Let's see how you're doing." The stethoscope was cold. Lily giggled as the nurse warmed it with her hands first. Deep breath. Another. Perfect. Nurse Dalrymple checked the chart. Weights holding steady. That's good. The new medicine helps, Lily said. My chest doesn't hurt as much. Well, that's wonderful news. The nurse wrapped the blood pressure cuff around Lily's thin arm. You been painting more of those beautiful pictures? I made one of the pawn shop. Mr. Moreno's going to put it in his window. Is that so? Her eyes crinkled. That Mr. Moreno's a good man. Helped my neighbor when her husband's tools got stolen and he couldn't work. Behind them, voices drifted from the pharmacy counter just outside the door. Another one who can't pay. A young woman's voice, sharp with judgment. You see the dad? Work boots falling apart, but somehow they've got insurance for the expensive stuff. Shh, Megan. An older voice, warning. I'm just saying, people who can't afford what they have shouldn't. Nurse Dalrymple's hand stilled on Lily's wrist where she'd been taking her pulse. Caleb's jaw clenched so hard his teeth ached. His hands curled into fists. Oh, the nurse said brightly, loud enough to drown out the pharmacy. Lily, did I tell you what my cat did yesterday? The silly thing climbed into the dryer while I was folding clothes. She reached into her pocket, pulled out a peppermint, and pressed it into Lily's palm. Mr. Whiskers, that's my orange tabby. He settled right in on the warm towels. I turned around and there he was, purring like a motorboat. She kept talking, voice cheerful as spring rain, while she finished the examination. Had to bribe him out with tuna. You ever see a cat eat tuna, honey? They make the funniest faces. Lily unwrapped the peppermint, the crinkle of cellophane covering whatever else the pharmacy clerk might have said. All done. Nurse Dalrymple helped Lily down. You're doing just fine, sweetheart. Keep taking that medicine, keep painting those pictures. She walked them to the door, past the pharmacy where the young clerk stood, filing prescriptions. The woman didn't look up. You take care now, Nurse Dalrymple said, her hand briefly squeezing Caleb's arm. Her eyes held understanding and something fiercer protective anger on their behalf. Outside, the November air bit at their faces. Lily skipped ahead on the sidewalk, peppermint bulging in her cheek. Daddy, what did that lady mean? About affording things? Caleb's chest tightened. Some people like to judge what they don't understand, but we do afford my medicine. You sold. She stopped, looked at his bare ring finger. We managed just fine, Lily Pad. Was she being mean? He wanted to lie, to protect her from the ugliness. But Lily had her mother's way of seeing straight through to truth. Yes, she was being unkind. Why? I don't know, baby. Sometimes people are cruel when they're unhappy inside. They walked in silence past the hardware store, the diner with its flickering neon sign, the empty lot where the steel mill used to stand. Should we pray for her? Lily asked. The question knocked the wind out of him. 8 years old, sick, having just heard someone dismiss their very existence, and she wanted to pray for the woman. If you want to. Mama used to say, mean people need prayers most. His throat closed. She did say that. That evening, their kitchen smelled like reheated stew and hope worn thin. Lily sat at the table with her watercolors spread out, painting something new. Blues and purples and a splash of yellow. It's for Pastor Evelyn, she announced. It's the church at night, but see? The windows are all lit up from inside. That's beautiful, sweetheart. Pastor Evelyn says we're supposed to be lights in the darkness. She added another stroke of yellow. Maybe that pharmacy lady just needs someone to be her light. Caleb forced his face into something resembling a smile. Maybe so. After dinner, after teeth brushing and prayers and one more story, he sat alone at the kitchen table. The bills spread before him like accusations. Rent due in a week. Electric company's final notice. Grocery money that would have to stretch another few days. The pharmacy clerk's words echoed, people who can't afford what they have. She was wrong, but also right. He couldn't afford any of this, not without the ring, not without whoever had paid at the clinic, not without grace upon grace from strangers and friends. Stability balanced on a knife's edge, ready to topple at the slightest wind. He picked up Lily's painting of the church, all those windows glowing, promising warmth inside. Tomorrow he'd look for extra work. Tomorrow he'd swallow more pride. Tomorrow he'd pretend the clerk's words hadn't carved something out of him. Tonight he just sat with his daughter's art and the weight of trying to be enough. 3 days after the clinic visit, Caleb stood outside Maple Ridge Pawn IST loan, working up the nerve to go inside. The November wind cut through his jacket. His pride had already taken enough beatings this week, but Lily needed stability, and he needed work. The bell above the door chimed as he entered. Rafe looked up from examining a trumpet, his weathered face neutral as always. "Caleb, how's Lily?" "Good. Medicine's working." He shifted his weight. "Actually, I wanted to ask, do you need any help around here? Part-time? Anything, really. I'm good with my hands, can fix things, organize inventory." Rafe set down the trumpet. "You're working at Henderson's warehouse, aren't you?" "Only 3 days a week now. They cut hours." The shop door opened again, bringing a gust of cold air and the sound of a child's laughter. Ana Reyes entered, her dark hair pulled back, wearing a simple coat over her cleaning uniform. A boy of about 6 followed her, clutching a red toy car. "Sorry, Mr. Moreno," Ana said. "The school called. Mateo's running a fever. I just need to grab my purse from the back room." "Take your time." Rafe's voice softened in a way Caleb hadn't heard before. The boy Mateo had enormous brown eyes and thick dark lashes. He wandered toward the counter, where an old music box sat among the pawned items. His small fingers traced its painted surface. "Careful, mijo," Ana called from the doorway to the back room. Caleb watched Rafe watch the boy. Something shifted in the pawn shop owner's face, a tenderness that transformed his usual, careful expression. "About the work?" Rafe said, turning back to Caleb. "I could use someone a few hours a week, sorting new items, cleaning up repairs." Mateo had drifted closer, standing now beside Rafe's stool. The boy studied Rafe's face with that direct, unfiltered way children had. Then he tugged on Rafe's flannel sleeve. "Mommy says you're my daddy." The words hung in the air like struck crystal, clear and ringing. Rafe's face drained of color. Caleb felt the floor tilt beneath him. Ana appeared in the doorway, her purse dropping from her hand. "Mateo!" She rushed forward, scooping the boy into her arms. Her face had gone pale as paper. "He's confused. He doesn't." "Children say things." "I'm not confused," Mateo protested, squirming. "You said, 'Shh, mijo.' You have a fever. You're not thinking straight." Ana's eyes darted between Rafe and Caleb, panic written in every line of her body. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Moreno. He doesn't know what he's saying." She hurried toward the door, Mateo still protesting in her arms. The toy car fell from his hand, clattering on the wooden floor. Ana didn't stop to retrieve it. The shop fell silent, except for the tick of an old clock on the wall. Rafe bent slowly, picked up the toy car. He turned it over in his hands like it might hold answers. "I should go," Caleb said. "Thursday morning." Rafe's voice came out rough. "Come Thursday, 8 o'clock. We'll start with 3 hours, see how it goes." "Thank you." Caleb left the shop, his mind spinning. He walked home through streets that suddenly felt foreign, past neighbors he'd known for years who now seemed like strangers with their own hidden stories. That evening, Lily painted at the kitchen table while Caleb pretended to read the newspaper, but the words blurred. All he could see was Mateo's earnest face, Ana's terror, Rafe's stillness. "Daddy, you're holding the paper upside down." He flipped it right side up. "Just testing your observation skills." "Did something happen today?" "How did 8-year-olds see everything?" "Just thinking about a new job. Might work at Mr. Moreno's shop a few hours." "Really?" Lily's face brightened. "He was so nice about my painting. And he has sad eyes, don't you think? Like he's carrying something heavy." Caleb thought about the toy car in Rafe's hands, the way his fingers had trembled slightly. "We all carry things," lily pad. "But some people carry secrets." She added a streak of purple to her painting. "Secrets are heavier than regular things." After tucking Lily in, After prayers and one more glass of water and checking twice that her medicine was on the nightstand, Caleb sat at the kitchen table in the dark. He thought about Mara, how she'd hated secrets. "They rot you from inside," she used to say. "Truth might hurt, but secrets destroy." He thought about Rafe, who'd paid more than the ring was worth, who'd somehow arranged for Lily's medicine, who'd just offered him a job when he needed it most. Was he a good man trapped by circumstances? Or was there something darker underneath the kindness? And Anna, working for someone she claimed wasn't the father of her child, bringing that child to his workplace. The fear in her eyes hadn't been confusion, it had been the terror of exposure. Caleb rubbed his bare ring finger. He knew the weight of carrying love and loss together, but secrets? Those were different burdens entirely. Outside, November wind rattled the windows. Somewhere in town, Anna was probably holding her fevered son, wondering if everything was about to unravel. Somewhere else, Rafe sat with a toy car and questions that demanded answers. Thursday morning would come soon enough. Caleb would take the job because Lily needed stability, because bills didn't care about complicated truths. But he'd watch, he'd listen. Because if there was one thing the Army had taught him, it was that secrets always found their way into the light. And when they did, everyone nearby got caught in the explosion. The next afternoon, Caleb returned to Maple Ridge Pawn, high-end Moment H. Mizzy, lone with his father's old toolbox. The leather handles had cracked years ago, and half the tools had gone missing, but the remaining wrenches and screwdrivers might fetch enough for a tank of gas. Rafe examined each piece with the same careful attention he'd given the wedding ring. His fingers traced the worn grooves in a Phillips head, the rust spots on a socket wrench. "Your father's? How'd you know?" "The way you carry them, like they matter more than they're worth." Caleb watched Rafe write up the receipt. The shop felt different in afternoon light, warmer somehow, dust motes dancing through sun shafts between the shelves. A radio played soft jazz from somewhere behind the counter. $25, Rafe said, sliding the receipt across. More than fair for a half-empty toolbox. Caleb signed his name, noticed his hand shook slightly. The bare spot where his ring used to sit caught the light. Rafe cleared his throat. "The inscription on your ring, 'All my tomorrows, M.'" Caleb's chest tightened. "My wife, Mara. Mara." Rafe repeated the name like he was tasting something familiar. He moved to an old filing cabinet behind the counter, pulled out a drawer that squealed in protest. His fingers walked through yellowed cards until he found what he wanted. 7 years ago, maybe 8. He set a receipt on the counter. A young woman pawned a violin. Beautiful instrument, check-made, inherited from her grandmother. Caleb leaned forward. There, in faded blue ink, M. Chen. His breath caught. Mara's maiden name. "She needed money for a bus ticket," Rafe continued. "Said there was a veteran stranded at the Greyhound station, just back from Afghanistan, wallet stolen, trying to get home to his family in Michigan." The room spun slightly. Caleb gripped the counter. "She came back 3 days later to buy it back, but I'd already sold it to a collector from Columbus." Rafe's voice carried old regret. "I tried to track it down for months, never found it, always wondered if that soldier made it home." "He did." Caleb's voice came out rough. "To Maple Ridge, not Michigan. His family had moved while he was deployed. He was sitting on a bench outside the station, trying to figure out what to do next, when this girl with a violin case sat down beside him. Rafe's eyes widened slightly. She bought him dinner at the diner across the street, listened to his whole story, then disappeared for an hour and came back with bus money. Caleb touched the bare spot on his finger again. "I spent 3 years trying to find her, finally tracked her down, working at a music school in Cleveland. And the violin? She never mentioned it, not once in 6 years of marriage." Tears burned behind Caleb's eyes. "Said she'd sold it to pay for grad school." They stood in silence, 2 men connected by a woman's kindness that had rippled through years neither of them saw coming. The phone shattered the moment. An old rotary on the wall, its ring harsh and demanding. Rafe answered. Maple Ridge Pawn. His face changed as he listened. Yes, he's here. He held out the receiver to Caleb. For you. Caleb took the phone, confused. Nobody knew he was here. Mr. Hart? This is Patricia Tran from Child Protective Services. Ice flooded his veins. We've received a complaint regarding the welfare of your daughter, Lily. Concerns about financial instability and ability to provide necessities. Who? His voice cracked. Who filed a complaint? I'm not at liberty to discuss that. However, I'll need to conduct a home visit within the next 48 hours. And Mr. Hart, I'll need documentation of stable income, safe housing conditions, and proof that Lily's medical needs are being met. Her medical needs are met. I just bought her medicine. I understand this is distressing. The visit is standard procedure. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., someone will need to be present with Lily. Yes, fine. Tomorrow. Mr. Hart, these visits are meant to ensure children's safety. If everything is as it should be, you have nothing to worry about. The line went dead. Caleb stood holding the receiver, hearing nothing but static and his own heartbeat. Caleb? Rafe's voice seemed to come from far away. He hung up the phone. His hands had gone numb. CPS. Someone filed a complaint. They're coming tomorrow. Sit. Rafe guided him to a stool. Breathe. I can't lose her. She's all I have left of... He couldn't finish. You won't lose her. You don't understand. The house is barely holding together. I just pawned my wedding ring to buy medicine. What documentation of stable income can I show them? Rafe was quiet for a moment. Then, you start work here tomorrow morning. 8 a.m. I'll have paperwork ready, official employment letter, 2 weeks advance, whatever you need. I can't take. It's not charity. It's a job. One you already accepted yesterday, remember? That evening, Caleb paced his living room like a caged animal. Each circuit took him past Lily's door, where he'd paused to listen to her soft breathing. She'd painted all evening, humming to herself, unaware that someone had decided their life wasn't good enough. Who would file that complaint? The pharmacy clerk with his sneering comments? A neighbor who'd seen him coming home with dollar store groceries? His ringless hand clenched and unclenched. Mara would have known what to do. She'd always been the fighter, the one who refused to let the world's sharp edges cut too deep. But Mara had sold her grandmother's violin to help a stranger get home. And now that stranger stood in their daughter's living room, trying to hold together a life built on her absence. The clock on the wall ticked toward midnight. 38 hours until CPS arrived. 38 hours to prove he deserved to keep the only piece of Mara still breathing in this world. In her room, Lily coughed once in her sleep. Caleb stopped pacing. The knock came at 7:30 the next morning, sharp and official against the thin door. Caleb had been awake since 5, scrubbing the kitchen counter for the 3rd time. Lily, grab your backpack, he called, keeping his voice steady. Mrs. Peterson will walk you to school today. But you always... Special grown-up meeting, sweetheart. Go on. She appeared in the doorway, braids slightly crooked from his attempt at fixing her hair, her watercolor set poked out of her backpack pocket. Is it about my medicine? Everything's fine. Promise. She studied him with those eyes that saw too much, then stood on tiptoes to kiss his cheek. Love you, Daddy. Love you more. He watched from the window as she skipped down the steps to where Mrs. Peterson waited. Only when they turned the corner did he open the door. Ms. Tran stood on the porch in a navy coat, clipboard tucked under her arm. She was younger than her phone voice suggested, maybe 30, with tired eyes that had seen too many broken families. Mr. Hart, may I come in? The house felt smaller with her in it. She noted everything: the patched couch, the water stain on the ceiling, Lily's artwork covering the refrigerator. Coffee? His mother's manners, even when the world was falling apart. Thank you, but no. She sat at the kitchen table, spreading out forms. Mr. Hart, I need to be direct. The complaint cited financial instability, inadequate housing, and concerns about medical care for a chronically ill child. Her medicine, I saw the prescription was filled recently. That's good, but whoever filed this complaint provided specific details. They knew about overdue rent, about pawned items, about struggles to maintain utilities. Someone had been watching, calculating. The violation of it made his skin crawl. I'm not here to take your daughter, Mr. Hart, but I need documentation within 30 days. Proof of steady employment with sufficient income. Evidence that housing is stable and safe, that ceiling stain suggests possible mold. And consistent medical care records for Lily. 30 days. The system moves slowly, which works in your favor if you can show improvement, but Mr. Hart, she leaned forward. Whoever filed this complaint seems invested in the outcome. They'll be watching. After she left, Caleb sat at the empty table until his legs went numb. Then he walked to Main Street, each step heavier than the last. The pawnshop bell chimed his entrance. Rafe looked up from examining a pocket watch, took one look at Caleb's face, and flipped the sign to closed. Tell me. Caleb sank onto a stool. 30 days. Need employment proof, stable housing, medical records. Someone knew details about the rent, about pawning things. They've been watching us. Rafe's jaw tightened. Len Pike, the blogger, also owns half the rental properties on the east side. Also holds grudges like precious stones. Rafe moved to an ancient filing cabinet. He's been sniffing around here for weeks. Asking questions about my finances, about Anna. Why would he care about because some people need others to fail to feel successful? Rafe pulled out papers. Employment contract. You started last Monday, officially. Part-time for now, 25 hours a week. But it shows progression, room for growth. Rafe, I can't. You repair things. I've seen your work. Those tools you brought in were restored, not just cleaned. You know what things are worth beyond their price, and you know people's stories. He pushed the contract across the counter. This isn't charity. I need help. The shop did need work. Dust coated the higher shelves. Boxes of unsorted items filled the back room. The old instruments hung with broken strings. The pay is fair, not generous, Rafe continued, but it's documented, official, enough to show the court you can provide. Caleb signed his name, hand trembling slightly. Start tomorrow, 8 sharp. And Caleb? Rafe's voice gentled. We'll figure out the housing situation. One battle at a time. That evening, Caleb made chicken and rice, adding the last of the frozen peas to make it special. Lily chattered about art class, about how Tommy Chen shared his crackers at lunch, about Mrs. Brennan's new cat. I got a job today, he said when she paused for breath. Her fork stopped halfway to her mouth. A real job? At Mr. Rafe's pawn shop, fixing things, helping customers. She launched herself from her chair into his arms. That's wonderful. You fix things better than anyone. It's just part-time. I'll paint him the best thank you card. With gold paint, the special kind Ms. Rodriguez lets me use. She pulled back to look at his face. This is good, right? You look worried. Just thinking about all the work ahead. You always say work isn't scary if you do it one piece at a time. Like puzzles. He smoothed her hair. When did you get so smart? Tuesday. That night, after she'd fallen asleep with paint still under her fingernails from creating Rafe's card, Caleb stood in her doorway. The room was tiny, but she'd made it magical paper butterflies on strings, a rainbow painted on the wall with leftover samples from the hardware store. 30 days to prove he deserved this, 30 days to show some faceless bureaucrat that love could overcome empty cupboards and water-stained ceilings. His wedding ring was gone, but Mara's voice echoed anyway, one battle at a time. Soldier. Tomorrow, he'd start fighting. The bell above the pawn shop door had chimed 17 times by noon on Caleb's first real shift. Each ring brought a story, a construction worker pawning his father's watch, a college student trading textbooks for gas money, an elderly woman clutching ceramic angels her sister had collected. Caleb worked in the back room, bent over a violin with a cracked bridge. His hands remembered this kind of careful work from the army, fixing equipment in desert heat while sand worked into every crevice. Different war now. Same precision required. You actually know what you're doing. Rafe stood in the doorway, coffee mug in hand. My grandfather repaired instruments, taught me summers when I was young. Caleb tested the violin's tension. Before I learned that fixing machines paid better than fixing music. Maybe both have their place. Through the doorway, Caleb watched Rafe with customers. The man had a gift for making people feel heard without judgment. A contractor explaining why he needed to pawn his drill set got the same respect as the lawyer discreetly selling her grandmother's pearls. During the afternoon lull, they sat at the scarred wooden desk in the back, sorting through intake forms. "That woman this morning," Caleb said, "with the space heater. Mrs. Chen, third time this year. She'll freeze without it. She'll survive." People do. But Rafe's jaw was tight. What if we didn't have to choose between business and conscience? Rafe looked up. "Go on. Some items aren't luxuries. They're survival. Tools for work, instruments for school, medical equipment, heating." Caleb pulled over a yellow legal pad. "What if we tracked those separately? Found ways to forgive those loans when possible?" Can't run a business on forgiveness. Not the whole business, just a portion. Like tithing, but in reverse. Rafe was quiet for a long moment. Then he opened a drawer and pulled out a leather journal, its pages blank. "We'd need to be careful, discreet. Can't have word spreading that we're an easy mark." Agreed. Maybe we call it the kindness ledger. Track what goes out, what comes back, what gets forgiven. And how do we decide who qualifies? We'll know. Caleb thought of Mrs. Chen's shaking hands, the construction workers' work-worn boots. We always know. They were still refining the system when the bell chimed at 4:30. A young mother entered, holding the hand of a boy about 10. She carried a battered trumpet case like it weighed 100 pounds. "I need," her voice cracked. "How much for this?" The boy's eyes stayed fixed on the case as his mother set it on the counter. Inside lay a trumpet that had seen better decades, tarnished, dented, one valve sticky with age. "It's my son's. For school band. But we need." She swallowed. "Groceries. Just until Friday when I get paid." "Mom, no." The boy's voice was small. "I don't need to be in band. James loves that trumpet," she said to Rafe, as if explaining might change the equation. "Practices every day, even though it barely plays. Mr. Morrison at school says he has real talent." Rafe examined the instrument with professional detachment, but Caleb saw his fingers pause at a repair patch made of duct tape. Some previous owner's desperate attempt to keep music alive. "Give me a moment to assess it properly." Rafe nodded to Caleb. "Would you mind taking a look in the back?" "You know instruments." Caleb carried the trumpet to his workbench. The boy had followed, hovering in the doorway. "You really practice every day?" Caleb asked, examining the valves. "Before school. Mom says I have to use the mute so I don't wake neighbors." "What do you play?" "Amazing Grace," "When the Saints Go Marching In." "Mr. Morrison's teaching me Tapses for Veterans Day." Caleb's hand stilled. "That's a hard piece. My dad was Army, like you. How did you stand like him? Straight, even when you're tired." Caleb cleared his throat and focused on the trumpet. The valve just needed oil, the dents could be massaged out, the mouthpiece needed proper cleaning. An hour's work, maybe 2. He met Rafe's eyes through the doorway. A silent conversation passed between them. Rafe turned back to the mother. "I'll need to do some research on the value. Can you come back this evening? Say, 6 o'clock? Hope and despair warred on her face. "I really need." Rafe opened the register, counted out $40, an advance, "until I can properly assess it." After they left, Caleb worked on the trumpet like it was made of gold. Oil for the valves, careful pressure to ease out dents, new cork for the water key. He polished until the brass reflected light like sunrise. At 6, when mother and son returned, Rafe had the trumpet case waiting on the counter. I'm afraid I made an error, he said formally. This instrument was marked wrong in our system. It was actually scheduled for donation to the school music program. The mother blinked. I don't understand. Clerical mistake. Happens sometimes with donated items. James, I believe this belongs to you. The boy opened the case with trembling hands. The trumpet gleamed. He lifted it reverently, pressed the valves. They moved like silk. It works, he whispered, then louder, to his mother, it really works. His mother's eyes filled. She understood what they'd done, even if her son didn't. Thank you, she mouthed silently to both men. Practice that taps, Caleb said. Veterans Day's coming. After they left the boy cradling the case, his mother wiping her eyes, Rafe opened the leather journal. In careful script he wrote, James M. Trumpet. Return to rightful owner. First entry in the kindness ledger, he said. That night, Caleb helped Lily with homework while soup simmered on the stove. She painted while he checked her math, humming something that sounded like Amazing Grace. Good day? She asked. Yeah, Bean. Good day. You're smiling different. Different how? Like you're building something instead of just fixing something. 8 years old, and she saw straight through him. He thought of James, probably playing his restored trumpet right now, driving his neighbors crazy with joy. For the first time in years, he wasn't just surviving until tomorrow. He was creating tomorrows worth reaching. Saturday morning arrived crisp and bright. Caleb held Lily's hand as they climbed the steps to Grace Fellowship, her watercolor portfolio tucked under her other arm. Remember, you don't have to show them if you don't want to, he said. Dad, they're gonna love them. She squeezed his fingers. Mrs. Patterson already asked about the one I made of her roses. The fellowship hall hummed with activity. Women arranged quilts on display tables while the coffee pot gurgled its weekend sermon. Pastor Evelyn spotted them immediately, her gray hair pinned up for work. There's our artist. She bent to Lily's level. The ladies have been asking about you all week. Mrs. Patterson abandoned her quilt station. Is that the portfolio? Oh, may we see? Lily opened the folder carefully. Inside lay 24 postcards, the pawn shop with its halo, Mrs. Patterson's rose garden, the church steeple against sunset, a cardinal on snow. Each one captured something gentle about Maple Ridge. Sweet mercy, Mrs. Chen whispered. These are professional quality. The child has a gift, Mrs. Patterson declared. Evelyn, are you seeing this? Pastor Evelyn studied a painting of Nurse Dalrymple's cat. Lily, would you consider letting us sell these for the clinic's medicine fund? Lily's eyes went wide. Sell them? Like real art? Real as rain, sweetheart. Pastor Evelyn gestured to an empty table. We could set up right there. I bet we'd raise enough for several families' prescriptions. Dad? Lily looked up at him. Your choice, Bean. She nodded firmly. Yes, if it helps sick kids like me. The quilting circle transformed into an art gallery preparation committee. Mrs. Chen found a tablecloth. Mrs. Patterson arranged the postcards in neat rows. Someone produced tiny easels from the craft closet. $5 each. Pastor Evelyn suggested. 10 for custom requests. That's too much, Caleb protested. That's too little, Mrs. Chen countered. But it's a start. While the women fussed over Lily's display, Caleb escaped to the sanctuary. Chairs needed arranging for tomorrow's service. Simple work. Honest work. Hiding from the hens? Nurse Dalrymple appeared with her medical bag, having stopped by after her morning rounds. Just making myself useful. You always do. She helped him straighten a row. Heard you're working at Rafe's shop now? Part-time. It's helping. Good. That man needs someone with sense around, too generous for his own good sometimes. They worked in companionable silence until she said, That complaint to CPS was nonsense. Anyone with eyes can see you're a devoted father. His hand stilled on a chair back. You heard about that? Small town. But also, Ms. Tran asked me for a medical opinion on Lily's care, told her the truth, never seen a more attentive parent. "Thank you. Don't thank me for honesty. Now come on, there's Coco in the kitchen, and your daughter's holding court." They found Lily surrounded by quilters, demonstrating her watercolor technique with a paper napkin and someone's coffee. "See, you let the colors bleed together. That's what makes the sky look real." "A natural teacher, too," Pastor Evelyn murmured. They sat at the kitchen's worn table, mugs of cocoa steaming. Lily showed Nurse Dalrymple her newest painting, the clinic's entrance, with morning glories climbing the doorframe. "When did you paint this?" Nurse Dalrymple asked. "Last week, while Dad was talking to the pharmacy. I wanted to make it look happier." "You succeeded, dear heart," Mrs. Patterson bustled in. "3 postcards already sold. Mrs. Vincent wants the cardinal, and the Brennan twins each want one of the church." Lily bounced in her seat. "Really? Really, truly. Going to need more paintings, young lady." As afternoon stretched toward evening, Caleb helped take down tables, while Lily carefully counted her earnings with Pastor Evelyn. $17, Lily announced. "That's like 3 prescriptions?" "Depends on the medicine," Nurse Dalrymple said gently, "but every bit helps." They walked home as street lamps flickered on, painting Main Street gold. Lily skipped ahead, arms spread wide like wings. "Dad, I'm going to paint the bakery next. And the fire station. And that tree by the library that looks like it's dancing. Slow down, Bean. You've got time." She spun to face him, walking backward. "But there's so much to paint. The whole town needs to see how beautiful it is." "Careful," she caught herself before the curb, laughing. "I'm going to make 100 postcards." 1,000! "Let's start with getting through next week. Ms. Tran's going to see how good we're doing, right? At the shop and the church and everything." The CPS deadline pressed against his thoughts. 23 days now. "She'll see we're trying. We're not just trying. We're doing." Sometimes his 8-year-old sounded 40. He caught up, took her hand. "When did you get so wise?" "Wednesdays. Pastor Evelyn's been teaching me about faith and works." They turned onto their street, their duplex waited, porch light glowing. "Nothing fancy, but theirs for now." "Dad, can we say thank you tonight? In our prayers?" "For what specifically?" "For everything. For Mr. Rafe and the job. For the church ladies buying my art. For Nurse Dalrymple being nice. For Coco. For streetlights. For—" "I get the picture." He squeezed her hand. "Yeah, Bean. We can say thank you for everything." The week passed in a blur of pawn shop repairs and watercolor paintings. Saturday arrived crisp and bright, perfect for Grace Fellowship's outdoor event. Caleb arrived early with Lily to help Pastor Evelyn transform the town square into something magical. "Lanterns go on every tree," Pastor Evelyn directed, her voice carrying across the square. "We want this whole place glowing by sunset." Caleb climbed a ladder, securing paper lanterns to branches while Lily arranged her postcards on a table beside the quilting booth. She'd painted 20 new pieces during the week: the bakery at dawn, the library's dancing tree, even old Mr. Franklin's barber shop with its spinning pole. $5 each. She practiced her sales pitch to herself. "Or 3 for $12. "That's a bargain," Dad says. Mrs. Chen arrived with boxes of homemade cookies. The Brennan twins hauled in folding chairs. Even Len Pike showed up, though he stood apart, taking photos with his phone. By 5 o'clock, the square buzzed with half the town. The quilters displayed their handiwork. The youth group sold hot cider. Someone had brought a keyboard and microphone for the hymn sing. Caleb spotted Rafe near the back, hands in his pockets, work boots dusty. Their eyes met briefly. Rafe nodded toward the kindness ledger display. They'd set up a simple poster showing how returned tools and instruments had helped 12 families this month alone. "Caleb," Nurse Dalrymple waved from the clinic's information booth. "Help me hang this banner?" The banner read, "Every dollar heals." They strung it between 2 trees as the sun began its descent, turning the sky purple-orange. "Ladies and gentlemen," Pastor Evelyn's voice rang through the microphone. "Welcome to Light the Town. Applause rippled through the crowd. Lily bounced beside her postcard table, already having sold 8 pieces. Tonight, we celebrate our community and raise funds for our neighbors who need medicine they can't afford. Let's begin with Amazing Grace. Voices rose together, some strong, some wavering. Caleb stood with Lily, adding his baritone to the mix. The lanterns began to glow as dusk deepened. After 3 hymns, Pastor Evelyn invited testimonies. Mrs. Patterson spoke about her grandson's diabetes. A young father thanked the clinic for his daughter's asthma medication. Each story added weight to the evening's purpose. Now, great is thy faithfulness, Pastor Evelyn announced. This one's special to me. Got me through my Harold's cancer and 100 smaller storms, the opening notes played. Caleb knew this hymn. Mara had hummed it while cooking, while gardening, while dying. His throat tightened. Great is thy faithfulness, O God my Father, the crowd sang. Lily's clear voice beside him. He joined in, pushing through the ache. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. Second verse, third. His voice held steady until pardon for sin and a peace that endureth. The word pardon broke him. Tears came sudden and hot for his failures, for pawning Mara's ring, for every month he'd barely scraped by while Lily needed more. Thine own dear presence to cheer and to guide. His voice cracked completely. Lily's small hand found his, squeezing tight. She kept singing, strong enough for both of them. Strength for today and bright hope for tomorrow. He managed the last line through tears he didn't bother hiding. Others were crying too, Mrs. Chen, Nurse Dalrymple, even tough old Mr. Franklin. Beautiful, Pastor Evelyn said softly into the microphone. Just beautiful. The crowd settled into reverent quiet. Then she cleared her throat. Now, before we tally tonight's donations, I have an announcement. An anonymous friend has pledged to match every dollar raised tonight. Dollar for dollar. Gasps, murmurs. Caleb saw Rafe step further back into shadows. Are you serious? Someone called out. Completely serious. Every quilt sold, every postcard, every dollar in the donation boxes doubled. The square erupted. People rushed to buy quilts they'd only been admiring. Lily's postcards flew off the table. The donation boxes overflowed. Caleb helped count money in the church tent while Lily restocked her display. Through the tent flap, he glimpsed Rafe at a folding table, quietly writing a check while Pastor Evelyn held a lantern for light. No fanfare, no recognition sought. Mr. Hart? He turned to find Ms. Tran, the CPS caseworker, holding a cup of cider. Ms. Tran, didn't expect to see you here. I live in Maple Ridge, too. My nephew goes to school with Lily. She surveyed the scene, Lily, chatting with customers, church members greeting Caleb warmly, his obvious role in the event's setup. This is quite something. Pastor Evelyn's doing, mostly. But you're part of it. Steady job at the pawn shop, strong community connections, Lily thriving despite her challenges. She made notes in her phone. This is what we hope to see. Hope flickered brighter in his chest. The final tally came at 9 o'clock. 3, 847 raised, 7, 694 with the match. Enough for dozens of families' prescriptions. Dad! Lily ran up, clutching $40. I sold everything, even the sketch I did on a napkin. He lifted her, spun her around. That's my girl. The lanterns swayed in the evening breeze. Groups lingered, reluctant to let the magic end. Someone started "This Little Light of Mine," and soon children were marching around the square, Lily among them, voices bright as the lanterns above. Caleb found himself beside Rafe at the square's edge. Thank you, he said simply. For what? Rafe watched the children parade past. You know what? Don't know what you mean. But Rafe's weathered face softened. Good night, Caleb. Thank Lily for another painting. Got it framed in my office. As Rafe walked away, Caleb dared to think for the first time in months that they might actually make it through. The knocking came too early, sharp and insistent. Caleb stumbled from bed, pulling on yesterday's shirt. Hold on, hold on. His neighbor, Mrs. Kowalski, stood on the porch clutching a paper printout. Her face wore that particular expression people got when delivering bad news they secretly enjoyed. You need to see this. That nice man from the pawn shop, it's all over Facebook. She thrust the paper at him. Len Pike's blog header glared from the page, Pawn King's Secret Fortune and Love Child with the Help. Caleb's stomach dropped as he read, Rafael Moreno pretends to be a humble shopkeeper, but sources confirm he's worth millions. While you struggle to pay rent, he's sitting on real estate holdings across 3 states. Worse? He knocked up his Mexican housekeeper and keeps the kid hidden. Ana Reyes has been his dirty little secret for years. The words got uglier from there. Racial slurs dressed up as concerns. Accusations that Rafe exploited desperate families while hoarding wealth. Claims he used charity as a tax shelter. Terrible, isn't it? Mrs. Kowalski lingered, hungry for reaction. And after that big donation last night, makes you wonder what else he's hiding. It's gossip. Caleb handed back the paper. Pike's got nothing better to do than, but if it's true about the money? And that poor woman? Caleb shut the door on her eager face. Lily emerged from her room, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Who was that? Just Mrs. K. Go brush your teeth, sweetheart. While she got ready for school, Caleb checked his phone. The post had been shared 247 times. Comments ranged from shocked to vicious. Someone had tagged Grace Fellowship, demanding Pastor Evelyn answer for harboring a hypocrite. After dropping Lily at school, Caleb headed straight to the pawn shop. A small crowd had gathered on the sidewalk, his gut twisted. The front windows bore ugly words in red spray paint, liar, thief, fraud. Rafe stood outside with a bucket of soapy water, scrubbing at the glass. His movements were steady, methodical, but exhaustion lined his face. Let me help. Caleb grabbed a rag. Don't. You don't need to be associated with this. Too late for that. They worked in silence while onlookers whispered. Some took photos. Caleb recognized Tommy Chen from the hardware store, who usually bought Rafe's coffee. Today he crossed the street to avoid them. The paint came off in pink streams, but shadows remained on the glass. Gonna need to board these up anyway, Rafe said. Someone threw a brick through the back window an hour ago. Inside, they hammered plywood over the windows. The shop felt like a cave, all the warmth stripped away. Rafe's phone rang. He answered, listened, then sank onto a stool. I understand. How long? His knuckles went white around the phone. All of them? Even the business account? A pause. Yes, I'll wait for the investigation. He set down the phone with excessive care. Banks frozen everything. Someone reported suspicious activity, large cash deposits and withdrawals. They have to investigate. He laughed, bitter and short. 20 years of perfect banking history, but one blog post and suddenly I'm Pablo Escobar. Can you fight it? With what lawyer? Can't access my money to hire one. Rafe picked up a hammer, set it down. The kindness ledger, all those families counting on us. Mrs. Rodriguez needs her husband's tools back for work Monday. The Patterson kid won't get his insulin assistance. We'll figure something out. No. Rafe's voice went hard. You stay clear of this. You've got custody to think about. If CPS sees you mixed up in a scandal, you helped me when, and now I'm asking you to walk away. Rafe turned his back, organizing tools that didn't need organizing. Your shift's canceled. All shifts are canceled until this blows over. The dismissal stung worse than the spray paint. Caleb drove home in a daze. The gas gauge hovered near empty. His wallet held $12. The next paycheck, the one he'd counted on, wouldn't come. The cupboard told its own story. 3 cans of soup, half a loaf of bread, a bag of rice. Lily's medicine sat on the counter, worth more than everything else combined. That evening, he made rice with butter and the last of the frozen vegetables. Lily didn't complain, just arranged the vegetables into a smiley face before eating. Is Mr. Rafe okay? She asked. Sarah's mom said he's in trouble. People are saying mean things about him, but they're not true. Like when Tommy said you probably drink because you're sad about Mom? The comparison hit like cold water. Yeah, like that. Lily fished in her pocket and pulled out 2 peppermints, the foil worn soft from handling. Nurse Dalrymple gave me extra. One's for you. He took the candy, throat tight. His 8-year-old, budgeting peppermints. Things might be tight for a while, he managed, but we'll be okay. She nodded, solemn as a judge. We're always okay, Dad. We have each other. Later, after she'd fallen asleep, Caleb sat at the kitchen table with bills spread before him. Electric, rent, insurance. The math didn't work without that job. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Heard you need work. Got rentals need fixing. Generous terms for the right man. Len Pike. The vulture circling. Caleb deleted it and went to check on Lily, sleeping peaceful and trusting. Through her window, the pawn shop's boarded windows were visible 3 blocks away, dark as a shut eye. The week crawled by like a wounded animal. Each morning, Caleb checked his phone for news about Rafe's accounts, for word that things might turn around. Each morning, nothing. Wednesday afternoon, Rafe called him to the back office of the pawn shop. The older man looked like he'd aged 5 years in as many days. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. I need to cut your hours. The words came out flat, rehearsed, down to 2 days a week. Just until the accounts. I understand. No, you don't. Rafe's fist hit the desk, rattling a cup of cold coffee. This isn't fair. You need this job, and I need you here. But I can't make payroll from the cash drawer, not with business dead. The shop had been empty all week. The few customers who came wanted to gawk, not buy. What about the kindness ledger people? I'm covering what I can from my pocket cash. The Pattersons got their insulin money. But it won't last. Rafe rubbed his face. Take these 2 shifts. Maybe by next week. Yeah, maybe. They both knew better. Caleb worked his shift in silence, polishing items nobody would buy, organizing shelves nobody would browse. The boarded windows made everything feel like a tomb. Thursday brought a new problem. Lily's medicine bottle rattled with its last few pills. Refills due Monday, she announced at breakfast, reading the label with careful precision. I know, sweetheart. The prescription would cost $300. He had $47 in his wallet and another $20 in the coffee can above the fridge. The final paycheck from his reduced hours wouldn't come until the following Friday, too late. That evening, Caleb walked to the corner store for milk, the cheap kind that tasted like water. Outside, Len Pike leaned against his Cadillac, picking his teeth with a business card. Hart. Heard you're down to part-time? News travels. Everything travels in Maple Ridge. Pike studied his nails. Shame about your situation. Single dad, sick kid, bills piling up. Man needs steady work. I'm managing. Are you? Pike's smile could have curdled cream. Because I'm hearing different. Hearing CPS is sniffing around. Hearing that medicine your girl needs doesn't come cheap. Caleb's jaw tightened. What do you want? To help. Pike pulled out a roll of cash, thick as a fist. I've got 6 rental units need work. Plumbing, electrical, drywall. 2 weeks of solid labor. Cash daily. Good money. The roll of bills seemed to pulse with possibility. Medicine, groceries, gas, breathing room. What's the catch? No catch. Just terms. Pike peeled off 100, held it up to the streetlight. Jobs are across town. You'd need to stay on site while you work. I've got a trailer you can use. Start at 7 each morning, work till 9 at night. Sundays off. I can't leave my daughter alone evenings. So, get a sitter. Use some of this. He waved the bill. Think practically, Hart. 2 weeks of sacrifice, and you're set for months. She needs me home. She needs you employed. Pike's voice went sharp. CPS sees you can't provide, can't keep steady work, can't afford her medicine. How long before they decide she needs a more stable situation? The words hit like body blows. I won't abandon my daughter for your money." "Abandon?" Pike laughed. "It's a job, not a prison sentence, though I guess when they take her away, you'll have all the time in the world for regrets." He dropped the $100 bill at Caleb's feet and drove off. Caleb left the money in the gutter. At home, dinner was rice and the last can of soup, stretched with water to make it seem like more. Lily chatted about school, about Sarah's new shoes, about the art project due Monday. She didn't mention being hungry, but she cleaned her plate completely, even the watery parts. "Can I have a snack later?" she asked hopefully. "We'll see." They both knew what that meant. After homework and her bath, Caleb read to her from the library book they'd renewed twice. Her stomach growled halfway through the chapter. He pretended not to hear. "Dad?" she yawned as he tucked her in. "Are we poor?" "We're together. That makes us rich. Sarah's mom says Mr. Rafe made you poor by taking your job away. Mr. Rafe didn't take anything. Bad people told lies about him. Will the truth fix it?" "I hope so." She was asleep before he could turn off the light. Caleb sat at the kitchen table, bills spread like accusations. Electric bill overdue, rent due in a week. Insurance, final notice. His bare ring finger caught the overhead light, a band of pale skin where gold once lived. Would Mara be disappointed? She'd been practical, his wife. Would have taken Pike's deal maybe, figured out childcare, done what needed doing. Or would she? He could almost hear her voice. Pride's just another word for fear, Caleb. But so is giving up. His phone showed 11:47 p.m. In the morning, he'd need to figure out medicine, food, everything. But not Pike's deal. Never Pike's deal. He stared at his ringless hand and made a promise to the empty air. "I won't give up. Not on her. Not ever." The vow echoed in the quiet kitchen, fierce and fragile as candle flame. Morning light filtered gray through the kitchen window, finding Caleb already awake, staring at the empty medicine bottle. A soft cough from Lily's room pulled him to her doorway. She lay curled beneath her quilt, face pale as winter frost. Her breathing came shallow, each inhale a conscious effort. "Morning, sunshine." She turned, managing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Morning, Daddy." He helped her to the kitchen, her weight nothing in his arms too light, like holding memory instead of child. She settled at the table while he scrambled their last egg, divided it carefully between two plates. "Not hungry." She pushed the plate away. "Just a bite. My tummy feels funny." He knelt beside her chair, taking her small hands. They felt cold despite the kitchen's warmth. "Tell me what hurts." "Everything's just tired." She squeezed his fingers. "But I'll be brave." Like Mommy was. The words broke something inside him. Mara had said the same thing near the end, forcing brightness through the pain. He pulled Lily close, hiding his face in her hair so she wouldn't see the tears. "We need to pray," he managed. "Okay." They held hands across the scratched table, heads bowed. "God." Caleb started, then stopped. Started again. "We need help. Real help. Not tomorrow or next week. Today. Please. And help Mr. Rafe too," Lily added softly. "People are being mean to him. Amen." She nibbled the egg, managing 3 small bites before pushing it away. He didn't insist. At school drop-off, Mrs. Patterson, her teacher, pulled him aside. "She seems tired lately. We're working through some things." The teacher's eyes held questions, but she only nodded. "Let me know if you need anything." "Everything. We need everything." The day dragged like punishment. He picked up aluminum cans from the park, 60 cents, found $1 in quarters beneath his truck's seat. Not enough. Not close to enough. That evening, he bundled Lily in her coat for midweek service. She moved like an old woman, each step deliberate. "We don't have to go," he offered. "I want to see Pastor Evelyn." And the windows. Grace Fellowship's stained glass caught evening light like captured rainbows. "They make me feel better." The church felt warm after the biting wind. Pastor Evelyn took one look at Lily and guided her to the front pew, producing a lap blanket from somewhere. "You draw while we sing," she told Lily. "Sometimes God speaks loudest through crayons." The congregation filled in around them 20 souls on a Wednesday night. They sang, "Great is thy faithfulness," voices thin but earnest. Caleb couldn't manage the words. When Pastor Evelyn called for prayer requests, he found himself walking forward. His knees hit the worn carpet before the altar. "I'm angry," he whispered to the cross above. "You took Mara. Now Lily's sick and I can't." His voice cracked. "I can't even feed her properly. Can't buy her medicine. What kind of father does that make me?" The church held its breath. "But I'm not done with you. Can't be. She needs me to believe in something bigger than empty cupboards. So I'm asking, begging, help us, please." A hand touched his shoulder, old Mrs. Chen from the quilting circle. Then another Nurse Dalrymple. One by one, the congregation surrounded him, hands gentle on his shoulders, his back, creating a human shelter. Someone started humming, "It is well." Others joined, the wordless melody filling the space between heartbeats. Across town, Rafe sat in his vandalized shop, boards across the windows blocking out the world. The store felt like a tomb, silent except for the tick of the antique clock nobody ever bought. Mateo's words echoed, "Mommy says, you're my daddy." 6 years of secrets. 6 years of watching his son grow from a distance, telling himself it was protection. From what? From gossip like Pike's? From spray paint and broken glass? Or from his own cowardice? He picked up the toy car Mateo had dropped during that terrible moment. A tiny thing, red paint chipped, one wheel loose, his son's fingerprints in the dust. The truth sat heavy. He'd let fear dress itself as wisdom, called distance kindness. But what kindness was it to deny a boy his father, to make Anna bear the weight alone? He stood, pocketing the toy car. No more hiding. After service, Caleb carried Lily home through the cold. She'd fallen asleep against Pastor Evelyn during the final prayer, sketchpad clutched tight. He'd seen the drawing the pawn shop, but surrounded by hearts instead of graffiti. Hope through a child's eyes. "Daddy?" She stirred against his shoulder. "Yeah, baby?" Pastor Evelyn put something in your pocket. He felt the envelope against his ribs but didn't check. "Not yet. Sleep, sweetheart." The walk home stretched long, each streetlight a small blessing against the dark. Behind them, the church glowed warm. Ahead, their cold house waited. But they'd make it through the night. Somehow, they always did. He didn't see Rafe's truck pass, heading toward the modest duplex where Anna lived. Didn't see the man park, sit in the dark gathering courage, then walk to the door with a father's determination, ready to claim his son before the whole world. 2 fathers in the night, each fighting different battles for their children, both on their knees in their own way, both done with hiding. The afternoon sun broke through November clouds, casting long shadows across Grace Fellowship's playground. Rafe stood at the gate, watching Anna push Mateo on the swings. The boy's laughter carried on the cold air, pure, untainted by the week's ugliness. Anna saw him first, her hands stilled on the swing chains. "Higher, Mama!" Mateo kicked his legs. Rafe walked forward, each step deliberate. Other parents noticed Mrs. Kim from the grocery, the Hendersons with their twins. Let them look. Let them all look. He knelt in the wood chips beside the swing, catching it gently to slow Mateo's flight. The boy's face scrunched in protest until he recognized who'd stopped his fun. "Mr. Rafe, you have my car?" The child remembered the toy from that terrible day at the shop. Rafe pulled the red car from his pocket, but didn't release it yet. His hand found Mateo's small shoulder, warm through his jacket. "Mateo," his voice carried across the playground. "Yes, son. I am your father." The words hung crystalline in the air. Mateo's eyes went wide. "Really? You're my daddy? Really?" The boy launched himself from the swing, small arms wrapping around Rafe's neck with surprising strength. Rafe caught him, held him, breathed in the smell of playground dirt and apple juice and childhood. Anna's hand covered her mouth. Tears ran free down her cheeks. I'm sorry, Rafe said over Mateo's shoulder. I thought I was protecting you both. From what? Anna's voice trembled. From love? From truth? She stepped closer, one hand on each of them. Secrecy was never protection, Raphael. It was fear. My fear, your fear. But look, she gestured to the watching parents. The world didn't end. Mrs. Kim actually smiled. One of the Henderson twins waved. Daddy, push me on the swing. Mateo pulled back, studying Rafe's face like he'd never seen it before. Really high? Really high. Caleb's truck rattled into the church lot just as Rafe was pushing Mateo toward the clouds. Lily pressed her nose to the window. Look, Daddy. Mr. Rafe is playing with the little boy. He helped her down, grabbing her art supplies bag. She'd insisted on bringing it something about painting clouds today. They walked toward the playground, Lily's hand warm in his. She'd eaten Pastor Evelyn's envelope contents for lunch, $30 in 5s and 1s, collected from the quilting circle. Enough for a week of medicine. Not enough for next week. But today she had color in her cheeks. Rafe caught sight of them, his rhythm on the swing faltering. The two men locked eyes across the playground. Caleb saw it all in that glance, the fear conquered, the choice made, the price being paid in public. He nodded once. Man to man, father to father. Can I paint them? Lily whispered. Ask first. She ran over, art bag bouncing. Mr. Rafe, can I paint you? And what's your name? Mateo, the boy announced from the swing. He's my daddy. Can I paint you and your daddy? Anna stepped forward, wiping her cheeks. Would you like to paint inside where it's warm? I live just there. She pointed to the duplex across from the church. I was about to start dinner. Lily looked back at Caleb, eyes hopeful. If we're not imposing, he said carefully, please. Anna's voice held something raw. I think we could all use some company tonight. Anna's home smelled of cumin and onions. Simple, clean, with Mateo's drawings covering the refrigerator and a wooden cross above the doorway. She stirred a pot of beans while rice steamed. It's not much, she apologized. It's warm, Caleb said. It's enough. Lily had set up her watercolors at the kitchen table, painting while Mateo watched in fascination. Caleb sat beside them with a wooden puzzle. Mateo had dragged out zoo animals in bright colors. The elephant goes here, Mateo instructed seriously. You sure? Looks like it might fit better here. No, the boy giggled. That's for the giraffe. Rafe stood awkwardly by the stove until Anna pressed a wooden spoon into his hand. Stir. You remember how? The tentative dance of almost strangers sharing space. Each movement careful, voices soft. But the children didn't know to be careful. Lily painted with abandon, tongue poking out in concentration. Mateo narrated every puzzle piece with exhausting enthusiasm. Look! Lily held up her painting, the 5 of them around Anna's table, depicted in watery, joyful colors. She'd given everyone halos, but crooked ones, like tilted smiles. It's all of us. It's beautiful, mija, Anna said softly. They ate beans and rice on mismatched plates. Mateo insisted on sitting between Rafe and Caleb, chattering through mouthfuls until Anna reminded him about manners. Lily drew hearts on napkins and passed them around like communion. This is nice, she announced, like a real family dinner. The adults exchanged glances over her head, grief and hope tangled together. Not a real family, not yet, maybe never, but for tonight, in this warm kitchen with beans and rice and children's laughter, it was enough. Close enough to imagine. Close enough to pretend the world outside with its gossip and graffiti and empty cupboards could wait. Daddy, Mateo said, testing the word like candy on his tongue. Will you come back tomorrow? Rafe's voice came rough. Every day, if you want. Promise? Promise. Outside, November wind rattled the windows. Inside, Lily added another figure to her painting, a yellow sun with a smiling face, watching over them all. The town square glowed with lanterns strung between the maples, their light soft against the November dark. Pastor Evelyn stood on the courthouse steps, her voice carrying over the gathered crowd without need of a microphone. "We've come together before in celebration. Tonight, we gather in defiance, not of each other, but of the poison that's crept into our town." Tables lined the square's edges, covered in donated quilts and strips of velvet cloth. The quilting circle ladies supervised each station, tissues tucked in their sleeves. "Some say Maple Ridge is dying," Pastor Evelyn continued. "That we're too poor, too broken, too divided. But I know better. I've buried your parents and baptized your babies. I've seen what this town is made of." Caleb stood near the fountain with Lily on his hip. She'd insisted on wearing her Sunday dress despite the cold. Her watercolor postcards were displayed on Mrs. Henderson's table, already half sold. "Tonight, we create something new, a ring of hope. Bring what you can, not just money, but the things that matter. Let's build a medicine fund with our own hands, our own hearts." Old Jim Wheeler went first. 83 years old, married 61 of them. He pulled off his wedding band, worn thin as wire, and placed it on the velvet. "Margaret would want this. She spent her last year fighting cancer, and if it weren't for neighbors helping with her prescriptions," his voice cracked. "This ring bought us a house in 1962. Maybe now it can buy someone time." His wife Eleanor followed, adding her matching band. "Together or not at all?" The Henderson twins, home from college, brought their grandfather's pocket watch. Mrs. Kim donated a jade bracelet from her mother. The teenage Rodriguez boy limped forward on his newly healed leg, clutching a baseball signed by the entire Cleveland Indians team. "This is worth like $3,000, he said, voice breaking, "but being able to walk is worth more." Caleb felt Lily's arms tighten around his neck. "Daddy, are you crying?" "Just the wind, baby." More people came. A carpenter laid down his grandfather's hammer hand-forged steel from the old country. The pharmacy clerk who'd sneered at Caleb last month brought her pearl earrings, eyes downcast. Even some of Len Pike's tenants appeared, offering what little they had. Each donation came with a story. 50-year marriages, inheritances saved for grandchildren, first paychecks, last gifts, promises kept and broken and kept again. The tables filled. Then Rafe walked into the square. Not from his shop, but from the opposite direction, carrying a battered red toolbox. His work boots echoed on the cobblestones. The crowd parted, some still wary after Pike's blog post. He set the toolbox on the center table with a metallic thunk. "Sold my '67 Mustang this afternoon," he said simply. "Chicago collector, cash deal, $23,000. He pulled out a cashier's check, laying it beside the Wheelers' wedding rings. "For the fund." Whispers rippled through the crowd. That car was legendary. Rafe had restored it himself over 15 years, only drove it Sunday mornings when the roads were empty. "That's not all," his voice carried now, stronger. "The tools in this box built half the porches in this town, fixed bikes for kids who couldn't afford the shop. These hands," he held them up, calloused and scarred. "They've worked since I was 14. I'm not some trust fund baby playing poor. Everything I have I earned. Everything I give, I choose to give." Anna stepped from the shadows near the church, Mateo's hand in hers. She wore her best dress, the one saved for Easter, and her head was high. "Mr. Moreno helped my family when we had nothing," she said, her accent thickening with emotion. "Yes, Mateo is his son. Yes, I kept it secret, my choice, my fear. I thought people would say I trapped him, that I was." She paused, gathering strength. "But I'm not ashamed anymore. Mateo deserves better than shame. My daddy fixes things," Mateo announced, breaking the tension. "He's teaching me." Nervous laughter scattered through the crowd. Then Mrs. Wheeler stepped forward, embracing Anna. "Honey, we've all got stories we keep in the dark. Bringing them to light, that takes courage." The dam broke. People surrounded Anna and Rafe, not with judgment but with casserole recipes and playdate invitations. The Rodriguez boy asked Rafe about teaching him restoration work. The pharmacy clerk apologized to Caleb, pressing a 20 into the fund jar. Pastor Evelyn raised her hands. This is Maple Ridge. This is who we choose to be. By 10 o'clock the fund had swelled beyond anything imagined, not just money promises of labor, shared meals, carpools to Cleveland specialists, a infrastructure of caring made visible. Lily had fallen asleep in Caleb's arms, her head heavy on his shoulder. As he carried her toward home, Rafe caught his elbow. "Thank you," Rafe said quietly, "for witnessing yesterday, for not judging. We're all just trying to be good fathers. Some of us are late to learn." Caleb shifted Lily's weight, her breath warm against his neck. Better late than never. The square began to empty, but the lanterns stayed lit. Pastor Evelyn insisted let the light burn through the night, let Sunday morning find it still glowing. Hope visible, even in darkness. Sunday morning arrived with frost on the windows and news spreading faster than wildfire. Mrs. Wheeler called her sister before church. The sister called the baker. The baker told everyone who came for morning rolls. By noon, the whole town knew the Ring of Hope had raised $37,000, plus promises of free carpentry, car repairs, and child care for families facing medical crises. The Lily Fund, they called it now, named for the little girl whose watercolors had started something bigger than anyone imagined. At the pawn shop, Caleb steadied a ladder while Tommy Rodriguez painted over the graffiti. The teenager had arrived at dawn with brushes and primer, refusing payment. "My leg healed because people helped," Tommy said, stretching to cover the word Liar with sky blue. "This is me helping back." More children arrived from Sunday school, carrying poster boards with scripture verses written in careful crayon. "Love thy neighbor. Be kind to one another. Faith, hope, and love, the greatest is love." Little Susie Kim had drawn flowers around hers. Marcus Washington added stars to his. They taped them to the freshly painted walls, turning ugliness into something beautiful. Rafe worked beside them, teaching Mateo how to hold a brush. Anna brought sandwiches and lemonade, setting up a makeshift picnic on the sidewalk. The November air bit cold, but nobody complained. "Mr. Hart!" A car door slammed. Ms. Tran walked up, official folder in hand but smiling. "Could we speak privately?" Caleb's stomach clenched. He set down his paintbrush, wiping green from his fingers. They stepped aside, near the alley. "The Chicago investors called this morning," she said. "They're releasing Mr. Moreno's accounts immediately. They cited overwhelming evidence of community trust and ethical business practices. That's wonderful, but I'm not here about him." She opened the folder. "The review board met yesterday. Emergency session after the Ring of Hope event. Unanimous decision." She handed him the paper. "Full custody of Lily Hart granted to Caleb Hart. No conditions, no further reviews required." The world tilted. Caleb gripped the wall. They cited stable employment at the pawn shop, safe housing, and Ms. Tran's professional mask slipped, revealing genuine warmth. "Extraordinary community support. Honestly, Mr. Hart, I've never seen anything like what this town did last night." "We're safe? You're safe. She's yours. No one can take her." Caleb's knees nearly buckled. 8 months of fear, of measuring every dollar, of lying awake wondering if tomorrow would bring a knock on the door over. "Daddy?" Lily ran over, paint streaking her cheek. "Are you okay?" He swept her into his arms, lifting her high. "We're safe now, sunshine. Nobody's taking you anywhere. I wasn't worried." She patted his face with paint-sticky hands. "God wouldn't let them." "Ms." Tran cleared her throat, blinking suspiciously. "I'll file the paperwork Monday. Congratulations, Mr. Hart." After she left, the painting party resumed with new energy. Nurse Dalrymple arrived with her famously strong coffee and a tin of peppermints. The pharmacy clerk brought brushes she'd bought with her own money. Even the Hendersons, in their 80s, sat on folding chairs offering advice about color combinations. Then Len Pike's truck screeched to a stop. He stormed out, face purple with rage. "You think you've won? You think painting pretty pictures changes what he is?" He jabbed a finger at Rafe. A liar who... That's enough. Pastor Evelyn emerged from the crowd. At 5'2", she barely reached Pike's shoulder, but something in her bearing made him step back. Leonard Pike, you've poisoned this town with gossip for years. You've preyed on people's struggles, raised rents during hardship, and mistaken cruelty for strength. Her voice carried like a bell. Look around you. This is what builds a community: kindness, forgiveness, choosing to lift each other up. Your bitterness can't build anything but walls. You don't know, I know you inherited those properties from your father, a good man who'd weep to see what you've become. I know you're angry because respect can't be bought or bullied into existence. It has to be earned. Pike's mouth worked soundlessly. The whole street had gone quiet, watching. It's not too late, Len. You could choose differently. You could join us instead of fighting us. For a moment, something flickered in Pike's eyes, maybe regret, maybe just deeper anger. Then he spat on the sidewalk and stalked back to his truck. I don't need any of you. The truck roared away, leaving silence. Pastor Evelyn sighed. We'll keep praying for him. Sometimes the hardest hearts take the longest to soften. The painting resumed quieter now, but with purpose. By afternoon, the pawn shop looked transformed. Bright colors covered every inch of damaged wall. Children's verses fluttered like prayer flags. Someone had painted a rainbow over the door. Rafe stood back, surveying the work. Looks better than before. Most things do, Caleb said, after they've been broken and mended. That evening, as golden light slanted through the town, Caleb sat on his porch with Lily. She painted another watercolor, this one showing the pawn shop, surrounded by all the people who'd helped today. Daddy, why was Mr. Pike so angry? Caleb considered his words. Some people forget that being happy is a choice. They think if they make others miserable, they'll feel better. But it doesn't work that way. That's sad. Yeah, sunshine, it is. She added another figure to her painting, a small, angry man standing apart from the others. But she gave him a tiny sun above his head, too. Maybe someday he'll remember how to be happy. Caleb kissed her forehead, tasting paint and hope. A week later, the pawn shop hummed with life. Customers browsed the shelves, chatting about the upcoming church bazaar. The kindness ledger sat open on the counter, recording small mercies: a mother's sewing machine returned, a grandfather's watch repaired free of charge. Caleb rang up Mrs. Henderson's purchase, a ceramic angel she'd spotted among the knickknacks. For my new great-grandbaby, she explained, counting out exact change from her worn purse. Beautiful choice, he said, wrapping it carefully in tissue paper. The bell chimed as she left, and Rafe appeared from behind a shelf of guitars. Caleb, got a minute? Need you in the back. The back room smelled of wood polish and old leather. Rafe's workbench held the usual assortment of items awaiting repair: a music box, a pocket watch, someone's reading glasses. But Rafe reached past all of these to a shelf above, bringing down a small oak box. Been waiting for the right moment. He set it on the bench between them. The box was simple but beautiful, the wood grain flowing like water. Caleb's hands trembled slightly as he opened it. His wedding ring lay nestled in dark velvet, polished until it caught the afternoon light streaming through the dusty window. But something was different. He lifted it closer, angling it to read the inscription. Mara's words remained, "All my tomorrows, M." But beside them, in fresh, delicate script, "All our tomorrows shared." The ring blurred. Caleb blinked hard, but the tears came anyway, rolling silent down his weathered cheeks. "How did you?" "My cousin in Columbus. Master engraver. Told him it had to be perfect." Rafe's voice was gentle. "The ring was always meant to come home, Caleb. Just like you were." Caleb turned the ring, watching light dance across the new words. "I can't pay for this. Already paid for. Every sacrifice made in love pays itself forward. Your Mara knew that when she pawned her violin years ago to help a stranger get home. You knew it when you brought this ring to me. Love doesn't diminish when you give it away, it multiplies." The ring slipped onto Caleb's finger as if it had never left. But it felt different now. Not heavier, fuller somehow. Like it carried not just memory, but promise. "Mara would have liked you?" Caleb managed. "I think I would have liked her too. Anyone who loved you that much, who raised Lily with you even those few years, that's someone special." They stood in comfortable silence, two fathers who'd learned that strength meant accepting help, that courage meant stepping into the light. "Thank you." The words felt too small for what Rafe had given him, not just the ring, but work, dignity, community. "Thank you for trusting me with it, for trusting me with all of it." The bell chimed in the front. Customers. Rafe clapped Caleb's shoulder and headed back out. Caleb remained a moment longer, looking at his hand. The ring caught the light again, both inscriptions visible. Past and future, loss and hope, worn on one finger. That evening, Caleb and Lily walked to Maple Ridge Cemetery. November had softened into something almost warm, Indian summer's last gift. Lily carried her art supplies and a new watercolor, this one showing the pawn shop with two halos, one over the building, one over the people gathered outside. Mara's headstone stood beneath an old oak, its branches nearly bare but still sheltering. They'd been here every month since she passed, but today felt different. Lily arranged her painting against the stone, weighing it down with small rocks. "I painted this for Mommy, so she knows about Mr. Rafe and the shop and everything." Caleb knelt beside his daughter, one hand on the cold granite. The ring clicked softly against the stone. "Hey, Mara, got my ring back today." Rafe added something to it. "All our tomorrows shared. I think you'd approve." His voice stayed steady, surprising him. "We're doing okay. Better than okay. Lily's medicine is covered now, thanks to the town fund. She's painting up a storm, selling postcards at church. She gets that from you." "And from you," Lily interrupted. "You draw good stick figures." He pulled her close. "We're not alone anymore. I know that's what you always wanted, for us to be held by something bigger than just our own strength. The town, the church, Rafe and Anna and little Mateo, even cranky Mrs. Dalrymple with her peppermints." "She's not cranky," Lily protested. "She just has opinions. Lots of them." He smiled, remembering Mara saying the same thing about her own grandmother. "We miss you every day, but we're carrying you forward with us. Your love, your faith, your stubborn insistence that people are mostly good if you give them the chance." Wind stirred the oak branches. A few last leaves spiraled down, landing on Lily's watercolor like golden blessings. "The ring's inscription is perfect," he whispered. "All our tomorrows yours, mine, Lily's, and everyone who's become family. Shared." Lily kissed her fingers and pressed them to the headstone, something she'd done since she was 5. "Love you, Mommy. Daddy's wearing his ring again. It's shinier now." They walked home as streetlights began to flicker on, Lily skipping ahead then circling back, never straying too far. Caleb touched the ring, feeling both inscriptions under his thumb. The weight of it was right, complete. At the corner of Main and 3rd, Rafe's truck pulled up. Anna waved from the passenger seat, Mateo bouncing in his car seat behind her. "Heading to church for dinner prep," Rafe called. "Pastor Evelyn's making her famous pot roast. You coming?" Caleb looked at Lily, who was already nodding enthusiastically. "We'll meet you there." The truck pulled away. Lily slipped her hand into his, paint-stained fingers intertwining with his calloused ones. "Daddy? I think Mommy would be happy we have so many people now." "Yeah, sunshine. I think she would." The ring caught the street light as they walked, both inscriptions catching fire in the glow. All their tomorrows shared. Not just a promise to Mara anymore, but to everyone who'd become family when they'd needed it most. They weren't alone anymore. They never would be again. 2 Sundays later, Grace Fellowship's hall overflowed with the best of Maple Ridge. Tables groaned under casseroles wrapped in checkered dish towels, cobblers still warm from ovens, and Miss Henderson's famous 7-layer salad that nobody could quite replicate. The November cold stayed outside, while inside, warmth radiated from more than just the kitchen. Pastor Evelyn stood at the microphone, her silver hair catching the light from the new fixtures donated by Ferguson's Hardware after the Ring of Hope event. Behind her, the wall displayed Lily's watercolors in simple wooden frames, each painting telling part of their story. The pawn shop with its halo, the church square filled with lanterns, hands placing rings on velvet cloth. Friends, we gather today not just to eat, though Lord knows Mrs. Patterson's green bean casserole is worth celebrating. Laughter rippled through the crowd. We're here to witness what happens when a community chooses love over fear, generosity over gossip. At the head table, Lily fidgeted with her Sunday dress, a soft blue thing Anna had altered to fit perfectly. Mateo sat beside her, carefully balancing a roll on his spoon, making her giggle. Their fathers watched with the particular contentment of men who'd learned that protecting children meant accepting help. The Lily Fund, Pastor Evelyn continued, started with one father's desperate act. Caleb Hart pawned his wedding ring, his last connection to his late wife, to buy medicine for his daughter. That sacrifice sparked something in all of us. Caleb's hand found Lily's under the table. The ring, returned and newly inscribed, pressed cool against her small fingers. But this isn't Caleb's story alone. It's Rafe's story, choosing to live openly after years of hiding his blessings. It's Anna's story, standing tall against prejudice. It's our story, Maple Ridge, of becoming the community God calls us to be. Mrs. Dalrymple stood from her seat near the kitchen, peppermint already in hand. The fund's got enough to cover medications for 17 families through winter. The quilting circles pledged monthly fundraisers, and young Lily here has donated her postcard sales. All of them? Someone asked. Lily stood, wobbling slightly on the church's uneven floor. People need medicine more than I need money. Besides, I like painting them. It makes people smile. The room fell quiet, the way it does when a child speaks a truth adults have complicated. Then Mr. Ferguson started clapping, his rough carpenter's hands making sharp sounds in the stillness. Others joined until the applause rolled like summer thunder. Well then, Pastor Evelyn dabbed at her eyes, let's eat before everything gets cold. But first, Rafe, would you lead us in prayer? Rafe stood slowly, his usual quietness deepening into something reverent. Anna touched his arm, a gesture of support that the whole room witnessed. No more hiding. Lord, his voice carried the weight of a man who'd found his way back to himself. Thank you for family, the kind we're born to and the kind we choose. Thank you for second chances, third chances, for all the chances you give us to get it right. Mateo's small voice piped up, thank you for pot roast. Gentle laughter threaded through the prayer, but Rafe continued without missing a beat. Yes, thank you for pot roast, and for the hands that made it. Thank you for Caleb's courage, for Lily's art that shows us beauty in broken places. Thank you for Anna's strength, for my son who teaches me every day that love doesn't hide. Caleb's throat tightened. Across the table, he caught Rafe's eye, two fathers who'd walked through fire and found family in the ashes. Most of all, Lord, thank you for love, stronger than fear, for grace bigger than our mistakes. Help us remember that abundance isn't about what's in our bank accounts, but what's in our hearts. Amen. Amen. The congregation echoed, the word rolling through the hall like a promise. Plates filled, stories shared. Old Mrs. Chen taught Mateo to fold napkins into swans while her husband discussed baseball with Caleb. The pharmacy clerk who'd made the cruel comment about affording children stood in the corner until Nurse Dalrymple marched over, pressed a plate into his hands, and sat him down between herself and Lily. This young lady's going to tell you about her paintings, she announced, brooking no argument. As Lily launched into her explanation of why the pawn shop needed exactly 2 halos, not 3, the young man's defensive posture softened. By the time she'd moved on to her newest piece, a watercolor of the whole town, holding hands, he was asking genuine questions about her color choices. The afternoon stretched golden. Pastor Evelyn started the singing with Great is thy faithfulness. But it was, 'tis so sweet to trust in Jesus, that filled the room with something beyond music. Caleb's voice, which had cracked with grief just weeks ago, now rose strong and clear. Lily stood on her chair to see better, her small voice weaving through the larger chorus. 'Tis so sweet to trust in Jesus, just to take him at his word. Rafe sang too, Mateo on his hip, Anna's hand in his. No more hiding in the back of crowds, no more keeping his voice small to avoid notice. As the last note faded, Lily reached for her father's hand. The ring caught the church lights, both inscriptions visible for a moment, the promise to Mara, the promise to tomorrow, the promise to this whole beautiful, messy, grace-filled community. They weren't just surviving anymore, they were living, fully and openly, held by something larger than their individual struggles. The Lily Fund would help other families through their medical crises. The pawn shop's kindness ledger would continue forgiving debts that crushed spirits. And around tables like this, stories would be shared, burdens lifted, children loved by entire communities. Caleb squeezed Lily's hand, feeling the ring press between them solid, real, returned. All their tomorrows shared. If you enjoyed the story, I handpicked this next story that you will enjoy. Please don't miss this one. Click here to watch it.